first one, which number are you going to use for 8?
4 and 2.
Yep, 4 and 2. So square root of 4, square root of 2. So you should have 2 radical 2. What about 75? Yeah, 25 and 3. So 5 radical 3. And then 27? Yep, 9 and 3. So 3 radical 3. Do you have any questions on how to do that? Because that's like necessary to know. Guys, focus, focus, focus. Okay, so today we're doing the last method to solve these. It's not difficult, it's just long. So this, it's just kind of like takes forever. So we save this method for like if nothing else works, okay? Because your objective is students will be able to find the number of solutions of a quadratic equation and solve using the quadratic formula. Okay, so this whole thing that you see right here is the quadratic formula. The a, b's, and c's are for the coefficients, so it's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So whenever your equation is in that form, your a is going to be in front of the x squared, b is going to be in front of the x, and c is going to be your constant. And these equal 0 to do that. And then pieces of the formula do different things. So the first piece that we're going to look at is the discriminant. And that's just this piece, the b squared minus 4ac, without the square root. So just b squared minus 4ac. And that tells you how many solutions you're going to have to your problem. So it doesn't tell you what the solutions are. It just tells you how many you're going to have. Okay? And then this other piece, the negative b over 2a, that is actually your vertex formula. And we're going to use that whenever we start graphing. So that's going to be able to find your vertex for your graph. Okay? So we're only focusing on the discriminant and then the whole thing today. So the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. And you use this when you're trying to figure out how many solutions you're going to have. If you want to figure out what those solutions actually are, that's when you have to use the whole thing. Okay? So, once you figure out your discriminant, you're going to like kind of interpret it based on like the sign it ends up being. So if you get any positive number for your discriminant, that is going to represent 2 solutions. So 2 spots where it crosses the x-axis. If you get 0 for your discriminant, that's going to represent 1 solution. So it's going to cross 1, so at the vertex. You need to write this down. And if you get any negative number for your discriminant, that's going to represent no real solutions. The reason why is because in the formula, the discriminant is under a radical. So if I try to take the square root of a negative, I can't, so that's why it's no solution. What's the square root of 0? Just 0. Can it be positive and negative 0? No, just 0, right? So that's why it's only one solution. And all positive numbers will get the plus or minus. That's going to why it's 2 solutions. Okay? And you use that for when it's asking how many solutions. Good, move on? Yeah, okay. So for these first ones, how many real solutions does that have? So when it's asking how many, that's when you use discriminant. So first you have to make it equal 0. So what am I going to do to make it equal 0? Yep, add 5 to the other side. So you get 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 equals 0. Okay, so next we're going to label what our a, b, and c are. So remember, a is always the number that's in front of the x squared. So what's in front of the x squared?
2.
2, yep. So here. B is always in front of just the single x, so what's that going to be? Yep, negative 3. And c is always going to be like the constant without a variable, so what's that? 5, yep. And so since it's asking how many solutions, that's how you know to use just the discriminant, okay? So the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So plug in your values, always use parentheses. So negative 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times 5. And you're just going to put that straight into the calculator. The key for putting it in the calculator, you want to make sure that right here you're using the subtraction sign, and everywhere else if you have negatives you're using the negative sign, because if you I don't do the right one, it like gives you a crazy answer, okay? So you're going to do parentheses negative 3 squared, then the subtraction sign, 4, then 2, then 5. So if you look in the calculator, the subtraction one looks different than the negative, it's longer. So that way you can tell, okay? So you get negative 31. So take a minute and like practice plugging it in really quick in your calculator. Like put it in and make sure you get negative 31. So that if there's an issue with how you're putting it in, we can deal with it right now. Good? Yeah? Okay, so that does not mean that you're going to have negative 31 solutions. You just are going to look at the sign. So since this is a negative, what does that mean? How many solutions? Yep, no real solutions. Make sense? Okay, go ahead and try the next one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are we done? So do we all get to do the next one? Yes? Okay. Okay, so for this one, you have 6x squared minus 5x equals 7. Okay, how do you make that one equal 0? Yep, minus 7. So 6x squared minus 5x minus 7 equals 0. Okay, and then what's A? 6, B, and C. So you should be doing negative 5 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 7. And what'd you guys get? 193, yep. Does that mean 193 solutions? No. All we care about is that it's positive. So how many real solutions is that? You have to make it equal 0 first. So how many solutions? 2, yep. Because it's positive. It's that little chart on the first page. Right here. Tells you. All right, any other questions on these? Yes.
Will like the A, B, and C numbers always be in order like that?
Yeah, as long as it's in standard form, it goes in order. Yeah. All right, so the next ones tell you to solve. If you're trying to solve or like get the answers, actually figure out what the solutions are, that's when you use the whole thing, okay? So first, make it equal 0 still. All right, so what am I going to do to make it equal 0? Yep, subtract 2x, and make sure you're putting it in the right order, so where's the 2x going to go? In between, yep. So x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. Yes? No. So now let's label A, B, and C. So what is A? So what's in front of the x squared? Just a 1. Yep. What about B? What kind 2? Negative 2 and C. Okay, and then your whole formula is this. X equals the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. It's obnoxious. All right, so go ahead and throw everything in parentheses. So x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 8 all over 2 times 1. All right, so the way that I simplify it next usually is I'll do x equals, I'll simplify this if it needs to be. So what's a negative negative? Positive. And then I'll multiply the bottom. What's 2 times 1? 2, yep. And then what's under the radical, I'll just put in the calculator like before. Just make sure you don't put the radical in the calculator, just the stuff underneath, okay? So you're going to do negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 8, like that. And you get 36. So we're here. Are we okay up to this point? Do you have any questions at all? No? Okay, so if you get a negative answer for this, automatically you can just say no real solution. So, if you get a positive, then it kind of depends on if you can take the square root of that. If you can't, if it simplifies, how you proceed. Can I take the square root of 36? Yes, so let's take the square root. X equals 2 plus or minus 6 over 2. And we're going to split this up with the plus and minus to actually get our two answers. Okay? So first we're going to do 2 plus 6 over 2. What's 2 plus 6? 8 over 2? 4. So that's our first solution. And then we're going to do 2 minus 6 over 2. What's 2 minus 6? Negative 4 over 2? Negative 2. So that's our other solution. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Or, instead of doing the quadratic formula, you could have just looked at this, said what two numbers multiply to negative 8 and add to negative 2, and you're like, oh, negative 4 and 2, so it's going to be positive 4 and negative 2. And then you're done. So, so that's why we save this one for like if you can't do anything else, because it's all of this. Okay? Yeah. All right, go ahead and try the next one. Oh, jeez. What do you mean?
I type when you get the equation, I type it in the calculator. So like the parentheses.
Mm-hmm. You do parentheses and then put the b in and then square it on the outside.
Yeah, and
Then subtraction. No, don't put the radical in the calculator. Only what's underneath it to simplify that part.
So just put what's under the radical.
Yeah.
Yeah, they found them.
Are we done? All right, guys, we're gonna go over it just for the sake of time. Okay, guys, focus. Guys, it's all good. Okay. All right, for this one, we have x squared minus 4x equals 21. So how do you guys make it equal 0? Yep, subtract 21. Guys, get off the phones, please. Focus. So x squared minus 4x minus 21 equals 0. So what does a equal? 1, b, negative 4, and c. Go. All right. So let's put it all in. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So we're going to have x equals positive 4, and on the bottom we're going to have 2. What do you guys get under the radical? Under the radical. 100, yep. And then does 100 have a square root? What is that? So 4 plus or minus 10 over 2. 4 plus 10 over 2 is going to equal what? 7. 4 minus 10 over 2 is going to be what? Negative 3. Yep. Okay, we good? Do we have any questions? Yes. Guys. Yep. So I'm going to have you do whatever method makes the most sense. So if there's an easier way to do it, I'll have you do that method. Yeah. Yeah, or yeah, just kind of depend. Yeah, because you would factor on this one. Like, this is what I would give you for factoring. Yeah. All right.
I guess we'll switch the sign though, because 7 plus negative 3 is
Yeah, because remember, it's like you have to equal them to 0. So it's like x minus 7 equals 0, and you have to add 7 to both sides to solve for x. That's why the sign switch. Yeah. Are you putting the radical in there? Don't. Yeah. Just put the stuff underneath, and then you can figure out the radical all yourself later. All right, next one. We have, this one already equals 0. So what does a equal? Guys. Hi. Focus. What's a equal? 5, b, and c. Okay. So put it all in. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So you're going to have negative 3 plus or minus something over 10. Throw that in your calculator and see what you get. Anybody? Negative 151. I think that sounds right. So you should get negative 151. So, what's my answer? Yeah, no real solutions because that's a negative. So no real solutions. Bless you. Guys, do we need to move away from each other? Be successful. All right, guys, try the next one. Guys, focus. Are you guys done? Or not yet? Yes, no? Yeah? So else? Alright, so for this one, we need to make it equal 0 first. Okay, how do I make it equal 0? How do I make it equal 0? Yep, add 1. So you have 4x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. So what's A? 4, B, 4, and C. Alright, so you're going to have x equals negative 4 plus or minus. Okay, so you should have it set up like this. Lots of 4s. Okay, so when you simplify that, you'll get negative 4 plus or minus something over 8. And see what you get when you do that. 0, yep. Okay, so what is the square root of 0? 0. So can I do plus or minus 0? No. So basically that whole piece just kind of disappears. And your one solution that you get, because it's 0, is going to come from just this first piece. So x equals negative 4/8. And what does that reduce to? Negative 1/2. Yep. So that's your one and only solution. Because adding 0 and subtracting 0, you get the same thing. Okay. Any questions on that? Cool. Okay. Do you guys want to power through, or do you want to take a break? Power through to the end? All right. Okay, next one already equals 0. So what is A? 1, B, and C. Okay, so you should have x equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a Okay, so x equals negative 8 plus or minus radical over 2. And let's figure out what that radical is. So I'm waiting for someone to type that into that calculator to get an answer. I think so. Double check they used a subtraction. Huh? What is it? Yeah, 72. Make sure, yeah, your subtraction signs and your negatives are all like where they're supposed to be. Was that the issue?
No, I just forgot to subtract 4.
Oh, okay. Okay, can you take the square root of 72? No, you cannot. However, does it simplify? Yes, so let's go do that over here real quick. Not big enough. 12 doesn't have a square root. 36, yep. 36 and 2. So 6 radical 2. Okay, so we're going to have x equals negative 8 plus or minus 6 radical 2 over 2. And then the only other thing that you would do is you're going to look at all of your outside values, and it has to be like a triangle, the way you simplify this. If you're going to simplify, like divide them all by something, it has to be the bottom with this number and the outside number of the radical. Okay, so you can only ever really simplify these if like you could break down the square root to get something there to simplify with. So what's negative 8, 6, and 2 all divisible by? 2, yep. So you're going to negative 4, a 3, and a 1. So then for your final answer, you're going to have x equals, let's see, how do we do it? We'll just do it like this, okay. So we'll just do negative 4 plus or minus 3 radical 2, and we're not going to put the 1 underneath. And it has to be all 3 simplifying together. You cannot touch underneath the radical, because it might look like a 2 right now, but it's not a 2. It's whatever the square root of 2 is, just in disguise, okay? So you can't use it to simplify. All right, last one, that's your guys's. we done or do we need more time? Good? Okay. All right, this one already equals 0. So what is A? -1, yep. B? And C. Okay, so you're going to have x equals -5 plus or minus. Okay. So looks like that. So you're going to have +5 plus or minus square root of something. Anyone got it? 30 what? 33, yeah. Alright, can you take the square root of 33? Can you break it down? No, so then you're done. Okay, so for this one, it's like the word problems are going to be nasty, the equations. In the shot put, an athlete throws a heavy metal ball through the air. The arc of the ball can be modeled by the equation y equals -0.04x squared plus 0.84x plus 2, where x is the horizontal distance in meters from the athlete and y is the height in meters of the ball. How far from the athlete will the ball land? So, if it's asking how far away the ball will land, it's asking how far away the height will be what? If the ball is landing on the ground, what would the height be? Like how high above the ground is the ball if the ball is on the ground? 0. Yep, 0. So it's basically asking for these values right here. If I continue this arc like that, it's asking for whatever value that is when it hits the ground. And we're going to get 2 solutions. The other solution only works for like the math side of things, not the actual real world side of things. It's going to give you, if you were to reverse this like back in time, whatever that value would be, but like that it won't make sense in like our problem. Okay, so we just are going to pick the one that actually makes sense for the ball landing. So we're trying to figure out when the height's going to be 0. 0 equals -0.04x squared plus 0.84x plus 2. And you could technically use any one of your methods on this, but like quadratic formula is going to be the only one that works. So what is A? -0.04. What's B? Yep. And C. 2. All right, so x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, so you're going to get x equals -0.84 plus or minus whatever that is over -0.08. I think under the radical you get 1.0625 or something. Has anyone done it? Or can someone type that in and verify that it's verify that it's 1.0625. Anybody? Guys, you all have calculators. You all should be plugging this in anyway. 0256. Yes, I might have just mixed them up. Yeah. Okay. 1.0256. So typically we'll just leave it in radical form because we just want more exact answers. But this is actually asking like how far away. We want to like actually know. So the rest of this you're going to do in your calculator. So we're going to do negative 0.84 plus that radical. In a calculator. Do it in pieces or use parentheses around the top. Negative 0.84 plus radical 1.0256. You get that, and then you're going to divide that answer by the bottom, and you get that. Negative 2.16 liters. Okay, then you're going to do the same thing, but with the subtraction instead of the addition. All right. Okay, and then divide that by... and you get 23.16 meters. So both of these mathematically would be where that specific parabola crosses the x-axis, but which one of these is the only one that makes sense to answer the question? How far away the ball is going to land from the person? Huh? Yeah, the bottom one. So that's, we're going to use our answer. All right. Any questions? Question? Huh? Okay, then wait down.
Are we done?
Almost. Okay, last thing is we are just going to do a quick little recap of all the methods that we learned. Just look at them, talk about when we use them, when we don't. So here's all of them. Graphing is listed there, but we didn't really consider that a method on its own. Graphing I would only ever use if you already have a graph made. Okay, I wouldn't like go through and actually graph anything to try to solve it. Or a given graph. I'm going to add to that. So it says graphing, use if you have a graphing calculator handy or if you're given the graph. All you should be doing with that is looking at the picture and saying where it's crossing the x-axis. Okay? Otherwise, you're not going to use that method. So that's an 11.1 if you need to go back to it. Also an 11.1 is solving with square roots. That method you can only use if you are missing the term in the middle, the bx part. If you only have a and c, that's when you can use square roots. If you have all three terms, the easiest thing is going to be factoring. So we're going to try that next and see if we can find two numbers that multiply and add. Typically, I will not do bottoms up at all. If there's a number in front, I won't even try and waste my time with factoring. I'll just move on to another one. Okay? So the factoring is reserved for like the ones that like you can just look at and like know what it's going to factor into. Completing the square is the next one. So if you cannot factor it, you're going to try completing the square. But you can only, or not can, you only really want to use completing the square. It's only worth it if there's no number in front of the x squared. It can't be factored. I'm going to also add, and b value is even. So that when we divide it by 2 and square it to add to both sides, you don't get like a horrible decimal fraction. Okay? So if it's odd in the middle, we're passing it on. And then quadratic formula is kind of like a catch-all. It is used for everything. So it's just kind of there as a backup if nothing else works. Okay? So we're just going to go through and say what method we would use on each problem. So for A, what would you guys use? Square roots. Yeah, because you don't have the bx part. So you're able to solve with square roots. Okay, B, so we can't use square roots on that because it has all three terms. Next one in line would be factoring. Is this factorable? Are there two numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add to negative 1? Are you sure?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just don't know.
6 and 5, yeah. So negative 6, positive 5, and then you would set them both equal to 0 and solve. So we would use factoring on this one. All right, C. Can't use square roots. So you could try factoring if you wanted to do bottoms up. You could try it, but there's no guarantee that after you start and you're trying to find the two numbers that you'll actually find any. Okay? So that's why I don't really like to waste my time. Would completing the square be good for this one? Go on. So remember, for completing the square, you can't have a number in front of the x squared, so you have to divide that out of everything.
So it would be graph.
No, I would. So you could technically try factoring and do bottoms up, but I wouldn't even waste my time. If there's a big number in front of the x squared, typically I just go straight for the quadratic formula and just not waste time on other stuff. So I would use the quadratic formula on this one. All right, for D, can't use square roots. So next we try factoring. So are there two numbers that multiply to 3 and add to negative 6? There's not, right? So there's no two numbers that multiply to make 3 and add to make negative 6. So you can't do factoring. What about completing the square? Yes, because the middle is an even number. There's nothing in front of the x squared, so I would use completing the square on this one. And then E, what method do you think we should use on that one? Yeah, quadratic formula for sure. All right, any questions? Okay, we are going to go ahead and skip the lesson check because we did so many examples. Holy moly.